Hey, I'm Dina.
I'm Nikki.
And we're your hosts for CBD Magcast. CBD Magcast is devoted to the legalization of cannabis
and its impact in your community.
Cannabis Concierge, the expert and discreet service of cannabis procurement for the individual or retailer.
These buds are for you.
CBD Magcast Civics brings you
Business Bragging, all about commerce in the cannabis industry.
In with Ike's. I'm very excited to have you here. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I believe that Ike's is iconic, the place where all the bud tenders can afford to go. And I think the reason why we pride being able to enjoy going, we care about making sure that we know what we're selling, how it performs, who the growers are, all of that. And one of the things that you provide on top of the affordability to do that, the products from almost everybody. I would like to know, if you would start for us, why cannabis, since you started with car wash, I understand, or give us a little story of you, and then also why your business model, and how come you are so profoundly supportive to the bud tender?
I'm sort of classic small businessman. I've had a lot of different businesses, from telecom to the last thing before pot was a company called Zevia, a stevia soda pop. And then I got into pot just as the zoning was appropriate here for a shop, and I already owned the property. I decided to put my name in the hat for getting a license. And of course, I didn't win the lottery. This neighborhood was a lot different back then, and I couldn't rent out the space. This was a tough neighborhood, and nobody wanted. I had it for lease for years, and I had one restaurant in it that got burned down in arson in, I think, 2013. It was sort of like, what else do I do with the property? Right. So I decided to give pot a shot. Yeah. So I had to go out and buy a license because I didn't win the lottery.
But you have 3 stores and another?
Yeah, we have 3 stores now, and we're opening another as soon as we can get the permitting completed, then hopefully a 5th later this year.
Let me ask you this. I know that you're also involved with CORE, which is an organization that works on the legislative side a lot in this industry. Another group wants to vertically integrate, which means bring in farms and stores. Others want to be having as many stores as possible. But I'd like to know from you, moving into 5 stores, how do you feel about the vertical integration, and would you do it if it became available?
That's a tough question. I'm opposed to it just because we have a lot of variety in the state, and the consumer wins without vertical integration. You go to a store like in Colorado, and there might be 6 or 10 strains. They're just selling what they grow.
So they don't let in others?
They do, but why would they? They have a bigger margin on theirs. It's a completely different experience. There's no place in the world that has the variety and the pricing that we have here. Would I do it? I might. I'd probably buy a farm in Eastern Washington for outdoor. I'm sort of a fan of sustainable pot. I mean, indoor, everybody likes indoor because it's pretty, but it's pretty bad for the environment.
I would like to ask if you had different hurdles in getting these newer retail licenses as opposed to the first one that you went through, and kind of what the differences were at the beginning versus now.
The first one was I had to buy it, so I had to make the business work. A lot of people that won the lottery, they had no cost in the business, so it didn't matter how well the stores did. It was all gravy, so we had to be a success. The second, third license, that was under, I think it was 50-52, where the people that were in the medical industry before, the unregulated medical, had a different priority system. So I partnered with Daniela Bernhard, that was one of the founders of Northwest Patient Resource, and she's a partner with me on all the stores now. And we got the second and third through her priority.
That's great. Sounds like a good partnership.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Can you tell me about the greatest challenge that you faced so far in this industry?
You know, a lot of people will come up with different things. It hasn't been that hard.
I love that answer.
It's not that.
I love that answer. That's great.
Because I'm just a business person. I haven't invented anything new. There's nothing really revolutionary here.
That's not true, and this actually goes back to something you skipped over, which was a bit of my fandom aspect, is why did you pick such a bud tender friendly model? And you did do something new, so you can't not give yourself the credit of being the resource that allows us to stay in this industry at the, I would say, a level that feels kept.
Because I hardly know anything or knew anything about pot, so I had to rely on the bud tenders. Going into it, the first couple months, I thought I could tell the bud tenders what to sell. I wanted to sell whatever our highest margin products were. That didn't work at all, because the bud tenders only sell what they personally believe in. And that's how we do our purchasing here. Everybody samples product, and we buy what the bud tenders think is the best for that price range.
We hear that a lot in the industry, and I don't know how many bud tenders actually get to try it, because again, That's the whole point. It's like we would all get in a car together. Or if a bunch went the night before, they'd come in and tell us everything that they were able to get. Then we would go do that, and then we'd branch off in a different direction, and then we'd come back, because not all of our stores carry all the same things. But Ike's gets to carry everything.
We don't have everything. There's so many producer processors out there. But it's interesting is when we give a huge discount for bud tenders, so a lot of them come to the store because they like what we sell more than what their store sells. Because the store they work at, it's their boss that's friends with the grower, and that's what they carry. It's funny, all my friends that are in the producer processor side, none of them made the cut. So it's hurt some of my friendships because we don't carry their stuff. And what can I do?
But that's legit. I love it because that goes back to the pure business model, and that's one of the things that is different. And you know it's a business, you know how to run a business, and you give that aspect to it. But you also understand that it's a business that's driven by the consumer, and that consumer has to have the experience. Putting all of those together, again, makes Ike's iconic.
Yeah, it's totally accurate. And one thing I didn't want to do, like a lot of times if I'm in a nice restaurant and the sommelier comes over, all I can think about when he's talking is not embarrassing myself. A lot of like old medical dispensaries, I'd go in there and the bud tenders would kind of be condescending because I wasn't an expert and they were weed snobs. And maybe I didn't want the absolute greatest thing in the world because it didn't matter that much to me. I didn't like the experience. I wanted something here where anybody can go in and feel comfortable and happy and welcome.
I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that sounds awesome. Let me give you a chance real quick. I know that in the past, it's probably been a while since anything has been written negative about you guys, but I know you did have some negative press in the beginning of 2016. Some underpaying bud tenders were blamed for like the gentrification of this area. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure. Bud tenders, I think it was 7 new hires were paid 50 cents less than the new minimum wage. Totally right. We're at fault. We did it. But at the time, our HR department was all trying to keep our medical insurance together because they were trying to cancel us because we're in the pot business. And we're the only, I think still the only 502 company that gives full medical benefits to the bud tenders.
I think you might be.
So it was just typical stranger, sensational journalism that, was trying to make a big deal out of nothing. What was the other? Oh, the gentrification. Yeah, this neighborhood I'm from here is gentrified a lot. It got really run down in the 80s and 90s in the crack epidemic. Like I said, when I bought this property, 3 of the corners had chain link fences around it. I was a gentrifier 3 years ago. Now all the developers are pissed at me because a car wash and a pot shop are bringing down property values with all these new buildings around here. So I don't know. I don't put too much credence into it.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Now, let me ask as well, this is an industry where I hear so often, I love my job. Heard from you, it's pretty easy. What do you think is so special about the cannabis industry?
Well, one, we're selling pot. I never thought I'd be selling pot, or anybody would be. I never dreamed of it, that it'd be legal. 3 years ago, it was so exciting being around a pot shop. Now it's kind of taken for granted. The stigma went away pretty quickly in Seattle. A lot of people wanted to be bud tenders a couple years ago because it sounded so exciting, and now it's just a job. And it's a fun job. It's better than, most retail because you're selling weed. But still, it's a job. And the normal job things apply, like showing up on time and like working.
And what is your favorite personal cannabis story?
Personal favorite? Oh, family gatherings. My family at every holiday, everybody would fight, and usually somebody would storm off and leave the house, and everybody's miserable. And now everybody is happy. And I don't know. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know. It's because everybody's a little bit high, because usually there's a bunch of edibles sitting out or smoking, or it's because everybody's drinking less. It could be the less booze or more weed or all the above. Who knows?
That's so perfect. And I've always said people consume cannabis to enhance their lives, and they drink to forget it.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. Yeah. Well, my favorite customers are the older customers for sure.
Yeah.
Then they're all like, yeah, I have a glass or 2 of wine at night, which really means you have 3 or 4. And we all know that. And people are drinking less and they're discovering pot just to relax at night, which is cool.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm not talking about medicine or curing cancer or anything like that. It's better than booze.
It is.
Because everybody needs something to take the edge off once in a while. Yeah, my personal story, I've been taking sleeping pills and Xanax and Valium and Sonata and Ambien and everything for decades and decades. And now I really don't anymore. And it's good, right? If nothing else, that's good. It's got to be better.
CBDs are a gas pedal in our body. We produce them on our own in our peripheral nervous system and in our digestive tract. So, of course, it's going to be better. And I think it's also funny that you have to burn it to activate it, though. I think that consuming it and smoking it is literally the best way besides an RSO.
Yeah, no question. I totally agree.
Is that so strange? Now, how are edibles doing with you guys? And I would also want to know regarding the medical aspect, because we are getting a lot of people over. You've got distillates that don't do much. You've got RSO you can't find very well. And then you've kind of got a spot in the middle that'll give you a genus, but it's expensive.
I don't know. We have RSO, and Some people love it. Some people are like, yeah. Distillates, I like distillates. Edibles are always gaining ground, you know. There's still a different market, but a lot of people are still terrified of edibles because of a bad experience they had, like, you know, when somebody made brownies, they had no idea how strong they were, or that...
Or that soccer mom story from Denver, where they ate the whole Snicker and ended up in the bathtub.
Who was the... Maureen Dowd? Was it the New York Times article that everybody read when she had black market or illicit market edibles that had a horror? Everybody's had those experiences. But I know we always explain that these are 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams, you're going to be fine. And we really don't take ourselves too seriously.
No, and I love that
too.
too.
A lot of shops really take themselves seriously, or they're giving out real medical advice. That's one of my pet peeves. And they're not supposed to, but I've been to a million shops where they're telling people about, you know, what to treat their cancer with and things like that. And especially shops that are where the bud tender's the owner. They're in it for, you know, they're in a pot, they're in the medical side of it before, and everybody thinks they're doctors and oncologists, and, you know, I'm not. I'm the first to admit I'm not. And I try not to make up stuff. Everybody has their own theories, but you should keep it to yourself when it comes to things like that.
Sure. I think you're absolutely right. The conversation about medical cannabis and recreational cannabis is important. There's simply not enough proven research to be telling people that we're curing cancer. We can tell anecdotal stories all day long.
Believe in the scientific process and studies and research.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's interesting. We are the research. Right? I mean, we are the generation having all of this legal cannabis. This is going to be the real studies in 20 years. You know, these are going to be the real numbers. So, yeah, exactly. Yep. My one last question that I want to get from you, Anne, is what is your vision of the future of the cannabis industry? That includes what you think will happen or what you would like to see happen. Either one.
Well, my fear of what will happen is that there is medical value in cannabis. I believe that. It'll take big pharma to fund the research and the studies, and when products are approved for medical use, it's not going to be smoking a joint or a dab. It's going to be a pill or an inhaler or something. That's why I think adult use or rec is more important. Like, what I use it for is not a medical use. I use it to relax. Yeah. And that's not really medical use.
But in a way it is. Don't take away from the fact that that's the placebo.
Stress is the biggest killer.
That's right.
Right?
So if you're happy.
But it's not it's not like alcohol isn't medicine.
True that.
And that's why pot to relax is a recreational use.
I'd like to argue that Xanax isn't medicine also to fuel your...
But it has real use if it's used correct. Listen, OxyContin has legitimate real uses. And
but yet CBD does better for your body than Oxy, because Oxy only tells your brain what's going on and then backs up your bowels. But nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I know with me, if I had a toothache and everybody told me to smoke, you know, everybody had different advice. Yeah. It was the most horrible thing in the world. My whole being focused on the throbbing toothache.
CBD does not make all of that level of pain go away, but it does spur our own reduction of inflammation, which is literal, versus the falsehood of just telling your brain that that's reduced.
But I know I have two friends. One that was in a motorcycle accident, one that was in a skydiving accident. Ooh. And their lives were horrible until the longer range Oxy came along. It saved their life. I mean, they can function now.
Yes.
And nothing else is going to do that. And it's too bad that people abusing a drug like that make it harder for these people now to get prescriptions. And people are going to abuse anything. They'll abuse pot too. How do you abuse pot though? I'm not sure how you abuse pot, but somebody will find a way to abuse it.
Maybe if they stick it inside crack.
Yeah, fast food. Come on, fast food kills more people. Obesity kills more people than guns or anything else. But can't talk about it.
So I kind of like the idea that we do have an industry, like Nikki was saying, in 20 years that'll become science-based for us to have this conversation again and be able to put up that Oxy against this, or maybe they could make something closer to nature this way that works at this level, so they don't have the ill effects.
Opioids have a pretty close relationship to nature.
Yeah, I'm with you that the fear is the pharmaceutical involvement with the cannabis industry.
And I'm not anti-Big Farm. Everybody nowadays is anti-Big Farm. Sure. I mean, it's amazing the stuff Big Farm does. And, of course, there's abuses, but don't condemn the whole industry. I don't want to change too quickly. And everybody wants all the federal rules to break down immediately. The thing I like most about this industry from a business perspective is all the companies we deal with, every single one is a small, you know, some are getting kind of big, but they're still small family-owned operations. The biggest in the state is a family-run operation. Everybody works there. Once we get rid of the state barriers and if product can move across state lines, the industry changes quickly. I mean, we're in a pretty good position here in Washington, but climate is good for pot. We're the biggest hop state in the country, and pot and hops are their cousins. They're very close. We can supply the whole country. I don't think you're going to see pot grown in places like where tobacco is. You'd have to use way too many pesticides. But it's the small family operations will go away. And we're already kind of seeing that with a lot of Washington State companies, selling certain assets and going public in Canada, and that's going to intensify and speed up. And everything there's a couple different trade groups, and like everything Walker wants to do, it will speed that up a lot. And consolidation, vertical integration. It's hard to get investment right now outside. If you have money from some of these people that are doing roll-ups, it'll put other people out of business.
I actually heard that California is bringing in a boat ton of money, and they're pumping it into stores, models they want to copy and then do down there, just replicate exactly and not even worry about starting up with any of their own ideas.
I'm not surprised. There's more money being raised out of California because it's a bigger state. And the biggest company here, the biggest company in Washington, the whole market's the size of LA. Whoever is big in LA is going to be the dominant brand nationwide. But one thing we have seen here is that kind of really slick brands don't work in pot. This market right now is more like a PCC Whole Foods model, where the smaller boutique companies do better.
Like the microbrew.
Yeah, for sure. Boom. Like Willie's and Marley and all these celebrity endorsed things. So far, none of them have worked here because I think people can kind of see through them. Well, they don't grow them. They're just out buying it every month on the market, and it's overpriced. But that's in Seattle. We live in a bubble, and you don't see very many celebrity endorsed anything here. But if you go to Mid-America and go to a Walmart, there's celebrity endorsed, swim shorts, everything. So it's a different market.
It's maybe a mentality thing, but that is, of course, what sells as you move further east, is just that name brand recognition as opposed to forging your own trail, which is just inherently Pacific Northwest.
People here are weird. People that one complaint we get is don't buy from Mike's because they're a big chain. I mean, people.
We have 3 stores.
Well, come on. I'm sure you know people that don't go to Starbucks because they want to go to the independent. That's a Seattle thing. We like independent everything.
Yeah, we just have to make sure we're clear about what's independent.
What's a better example than Amazon? And we hate Amazon in Seattle.
But we click on Prime to get everything, and then we complain about it.
Yeah.
So we do have that hypocrisy, which is also very specific to us up here in this area.
And most chain anythings pay people better than independent.
Talk real quick about how you were able to actually get health insurance.
Well, we finally convinced the insurance provider that we use that pot people aren't sick more than anybody else. The first reaction was, they're all drug addicts and they're uninsurable.
Yeah, that's really great. Have you found a bank that's friendly for you?
We've been with Salal from day one with the credit union. That's a problem we don't have in Washington State because we have such a closely controlled and tight regulatory system. And they're a credit union, but they function the same as a bank, better than any bank I've ever been with. They're great. They're kind of expensive, but they're great. Again, a Seattle thing.
If you can get 10 licenses and open up 10 stores, would you do it?
100%. We've already found having 3 stores is a lot easier than having 1 store. Just economies of scale. And before, if there was a call in the middle of the night about an alarm going off, I'd get the call. Now I have a director of security, and he gets the call. We have, a director of purchasing. We have, different. It's a bigger company. It's easier. And I get why chains are chains now. Because, this morning we were discussing paint color. So every store has the exact same 3 shades of paint. Otherwise, we're always trying to figure out which one to do touch-ups with. It's just standard franchise how stores operate. Pot is different here just because no vertical integration. We can't touch it. If we were actually packaging it or weighing it or the jars, the tongs in jars, like in other states, completely different model. Here we're just purely retail.
And while we all like the independent thing, we still want the consistent experience. We still want all the benefits of the chain with the idea that we're doing right by our lives and our community.
Everybody I know traveling around the world ends up going to some kind of American chain to feel comfortable once in a while. Be it a Starbucks or McDonald's, because it's just that it's like going home for a second.
I do have one more question about your bud tenders. Do you have any trained medical consultants on staff?
Right now we only do in White Center, and we're doing it at the other 2 stores, and I'm not sure why. Because
you don't seem like you really want that, so that's why I asked.
In my opinion, I'm one of these people, the difference between medical grade pot and medical pot is the intent of the user. 100%. In this state, it means nothing except there's some additional pesticide testing, and we sometimes do that ourselves because we don't really trust anybody. We do our own testing. I don't trust growers that much.
No.
But I love them, but it's not even, who knows what somebody's doing in the middle of the night. But it only saves them the sales tax. That's how Walker screwed everybody by, they still pay the sin tax. Right. They can buy larger quantities. With our system now, they can simply buy an ounce, then buy another ounce, because it's our limits are per transaction as opposed to per day or something.
Right.
It's just a 10%, and there's only 2 or 3 companies that have medical authorized pot here. So the cost is so much higher for that, it counteracts the no sales tax.
And they typically have the same product, not with the medical seal.
It
costs $1 or $2 less, so you just get that.
It's the exact same product.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing, younger people can get in the store, which is important if they have those conditions. But so far, statewide, it's not happening.
Unfortunately, the medical system in Washington is more of a facade to make the medical patients happy that they even exist in the legislature.
But I question this. Why? Why do you need it? When there used to be, isn't Claritin the allergy medicine?
Yeah.
You used to have a prescription for it.
Yep.
Now you can get it over the counter. Yeah.
Everybody needs it. Yeah.
I forget what it was. There was some medicine I was taking last year, and I had a prescription for it, and I went to refill it, and the pharmacist kept telling me to walk 2 feet over and get it from the thing. I didn't understand what he was saying. That it was, you can buy Claritin or Allegra with a prescription, or you can buy it over the counter. Exact same. So if you're a medical pot customer, if you can just buy it over the counter, you don't have to buy the medical version. And I wouldn't be surprised in 20 years of research, we find some of the ways we're consuming pot now might not be the best.
That's going to be exciting.
It's like alcohol. You still do it. You just know that it's killing you. Just like living.
But
right?
the thing is, most people don't, in this industry, we always talk about people that are such avid users. The average customer is not. It's like the average drinker is not an alcoholic.
Right, yeah.
They're just average customers.
Yeah, 100%.
As humans, we take things to extremes, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, this industry is difficult because we deal with so many individuals, and every individual is so different. Every individual has a different relationship with cannabis.
So with pot, it's so different than alcohol. Look how different everybody's reaction is to different things.
Totally polarizing.
And don't forget, the bud tenders have the most risk of anybody. So they're the ones, if they sell to somebody underage, it's not a felony on me, felony on them.
Yes, I understand CORE was supposed to really take that up, and that was going to be a big legislative push for them. Have they gotten anywhere with that, and is that something that we're going to see changed?
It was a short legislative session this year, so it'll probably come up next year.
Yeah, probably not forever.
Well, still, they're the one that's trafficking. At the end of the day, they're the one that's doing the sale. That's why we started doing the 40% discount, because I always figured that bud tenders were getting the short end of the stick. They were taking all the risk and getting nothing. They couldn't even a grower, they can't even, growers can't even smoke their pot. Have you visited any outdoor Eastern Washington farms? Tier 3 is so small compared to normal. It's 30,000 feet. It's less than an acre. And,
but then you were also talking about all the water, the pesticides, the consumption of things.
Well, there's less. That's why I like outdoors. Less pesticides, less chemicals, because it's outdoor. It's how things are grown. I think we'll see a lot more outdoor, a lot more greenhouse, less warehouse. Well, it's so expensive. And what else do we grow in warehouses? I hope the industry stays as pure as it sort of is now. And even if you're a big tier 1, it's hard to be able to afford the compliance and the labeling and running a good business. Because there are some people that grow great pot, but we don't buy it because maybe their packaging is bad and maybe their business practices are bad. They don't show up on time. Their manifests aren't correctly. They don't have a full-time office manager. And at a tier 1 level, can they afford a full-time office manager? Is their accounting correct?
It's the same as when you broke down farm and you have, instead of big hospitals, all these little indigos, then private carers that come up. So there would be more businesses for people who specialize in bookkeeping who are the non-I-502 that can make money in the industry.
Yeah, I get that.
But you're not wrong either. Maybe tier 1 is too small, but it's that concept, right? Of just making
boutique
sure.
Thing. Right, it's a mid-market that sells the most. And
one last thing we have to know. Is it Ian, or would you rather go just by Ike?
Ian. Ian is good, yeah.
And why Ike's?
My initials.
I love that. So you are Ike.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I answered both.
All right, well, thank you very much, and I think we're going to maybe head out and grab a photo.
Okay, great.
CBD Magcast and Cannabis Concierge are a division of Confidential Monkey Enterprises.
Visit us at www.CannabisBeyondDope.com.